if I were to be a dish, they were the chef. They supplied the recipe and the instruction. We left Haiti. My dad left Haiti back in, I think in '56, and he kept on going back and forth. I think he started in '54, but in '56, he had established a foothold in New York, and then eventually started sending for my siblings. Where I come from a large family. With my mom, there were 6 of us. So my dad would send for a couple of my siblings, and my mom would come here and would go back. And I was the last to board the Pan Am flight to John F. Kennedy, New York City, in March of 1965. And arriving in New York as an immigrant family during the smack of the civil rights movement was something that I think really formed my dad. This sense of being Black in America and an immigrant really shaped his politics, the way he navigated the new America, and the sense of consciousness that he had. My dad was very well read, so was my mom. They both spoke 3 different languages: Spanish, Creole, and French. Actually 4, English. My mom learned English when she arrived in the States, but my dad was fluent by 1962. He was fluent because he worked for the UN back when in his younger life. He worked for the UN, and he was always been someone who was interested about equity, and he had this entrepreneurial spirit. And I think the last job he ever had was working for the UN. He never worked for anybody else. I actually take that back. When he arrived here, he went to Texas, and he got a little job somewhere near Galveston as a waiter, and one of the patrons called him the N-word, and he just dropped everything he was doing and walked out. Mm. He says his dignity was not for hire. So he went to New York, worked at the Brooklyn Naval Yard. Oh, wow. As a waiter. And he developed a reputation of being one who engages with the community and facilitate a cultural ecosystem so that immigrants who are leaving, the middle class specifically that was leaving Haiti, and can come and feel at home. So when we went to Brooklyn, I call my father the Haitian Moses. When he left Haiti, most of the middle class left based on his recommendation. So fast forward, we leave New York. He was tired of the cold. He wanted some place close to home. Since he left Haiti because of Duvalier, he never stepped foot again until the 90s when Aristide took power. But my mother would go back and forth, but he was staunch. He said he would never step foot as long as Duvalier inhaled air in his homeland. Mm-hmm. So when Jean-Claude Francois went to France in exile, then he returned back to Haiti. He told me the story before he died, that when he landed, not he told me, friends of him who were meeting him at the airport in Port-au-Prince. So when he got off the plane, he knelt to the floor, kissed the ground, and wept like a child. Mm-hmm. And that's to show you the enormity of being away from your sense of home. So my mom, she was the orchestrator. He would not have had any success if it wasn't for my mother. My mom was the boss. Cuban, born in Cuba, lived in Haiti, bicultural, navigating. She was of very fair skin. I mean, what they call it, passer. She could pass for white. but she always chose to identify with Black. And she raised us in a multicultural household. That means we would hear Tchaikovsky in the morning, hear Haitian compa in the afternoon, and possibly hear reggae or pop music in between. We had a ritual. My dad would come home either from his business as a mechanic. He had a gas station. He would take off his shoes. He would ask me to loosen his boots. I would take his shoes off, and we would sit and watch, back then, CBS News, the evening news. It was mostly CBS because of Walter Cronkite. And many nights of sitting with him, some nights I wish I was somewhere else, but for most nights watching Frontline with him or watching PBS, Mick Lear, at the time I thought it was torturous, but he was forming my identity. He was helping me see the world through this little square box and allowing me to imagine through imagination and through news broadcast, the world and where I fit in this world.